Today I will begin with an excerpt from The Gift of Well-Being by Ajahn Munindo. The Ritual of Separation. Today I would like to ask that we ponder on the question, what is the value and the place of the celibate renunciant community in our modern world? A number of years ago, when I was about to deliver my first public Dhamma talk, a friend mentioned to me by way of encouragement that talking about Dhamma was like contemplating out loud, giving voice to what one does anyway. It is in this spirit that I ask to talk with you today. Ideally, we would have a respected and venerable elder to conduct this ordination ceremony and to address this particularly important subject, but such individuals are rare in the world, so we have to make do with what we have at hand. How relevant is the celibate renunciant life at this time? I wish to make this inquiry because our participation in this community life, whether as monks, nuns, or lay people, will only genuinely serve us if what we are doing is directly relevant in terms of Dhamma. If we are involved for any reasons other than those that accord with our heart's deepest longings for truth, then we could be creating more difficulties for ourselves and for each other. I would like to begin with a story. It is from India, where many good teaching stories arise, and involves the puja routine of an old Swami. This Swami kept a cat in his ashram. There were very few occasions when the cat and the Swami were not seen together. The only time there was ever any problem was at evening puja, when the cat sometimes upset the oil lamps. After a few incidents, the Swami decided the cat could not be present during the puja anymore, and took to putting it out just before the ritual began. This solved the problem comfortably, and puja went on for years without interruption. Eventually, the Swami passed away. All the faithful devotees continued doing puja, and continued to put the cat out before it began. One day the cat died. There was no question in the minds of the devotees. They immediately went out to market and found another cat for the ashram. It would not be possible to do puja properly without the ritual of putting the cat outside. So we want to see in our case how much of what we are doing is puja and how much is putting the cat out. The Asians who are here today may have no doubt about the relevance of this renunciant lifestyle. It is part of your culture and has always been there for you. But maybe you should doubt it, particularly if you want to have genuine answers to give to your children when they come to you with their genuine questions. The Europeans, on the other hand, might prefer to avoid the question out of fear that something that they hold dear will fall apart. But we don't have to protect reality. Reality doesn't fall apart. We do need to protect opportunities that help us to see reality, which is what the renunciant lifestyle is designed for. If we inquire carefully, which implies respectfully, then we don't have to be afraid. In fact, our questioning will give us protection. In this way of cultivation, we are interested in fostering an unobstructed relationship with the truth of our own hearts. We don't need to fear seeing what is true. The only thing we need to guard ourselves from is unawareness. I want to consider this matter openly today because I've observed a strong force in the Western Buddhist world, which in effect is attempting to deliver a redundancy notice on the renunciant lifestyle. Often one hears or reads comments like, "We must create a new form for this time. The traditional celibate form belongs to a different era." If we are not clear for ourselves about the validity of our involvement in this lifestyle, there is a good chance that this species of celibate monks and nuns will die out. Some might say that it is supposed to, and maybe it is, but maybe it isn't. My 22 years of attending to this way inclines me to believe that it still has life in it, vibrant life and meaning. This is not to say that there isn't a very real need for adaptation. In considering the process of adaptation, it is essential that we are aware of how our assumptions color our perceptions. These are what form the basis of our inquiry. For instance, it used to be that monastics were afforded respect because of their superior learning. Secular education has changed all of that. Over the centuries, advances in technology have allowed more and more people to have ready access to vast amounts of information. The positive side of this is obvious, but we have lost the context of the person-to-person relationship, which communicated much more than just information. We should notice how this might alter our perception of the role of monastics in society. If you can download discourses and commentaries from the web, why bother visiting a monastery? Respect given in regard to education is one area. Possibly an even more profoundly important area that has undergone tremendous change is that of sexuality. With the use of modern medical techniques, the consequences of an active sexual life have been obscured. Birthing and child rearing are now an option, not an inevitability. Skillful use of contraception can offer significant benefits in the domain of health and population. However, these techniques have made it more difficult to appreciate what kind of effort is required to give up sexual intimacy. The impulse to respect celibacy is no longer a straightforward matter. So let's take on board collectively, as a Buddhist community, how changing conditions affect our perceptions. This matter will continue to exercise our considered attention as we share this ongoing development of Sangha. Today being Vaisakha Puja, we celebrate the birth of the Buddha. We honor with devotion his enlightenment, and we respect his passing away. And as we are celebrating these events together as members of the Sangha of Disciples of the Buddha, Sangha, as we know, means community, and this community is called the Savaka Sangha. The word Savaka, meaning disciple, has its roots in a word literally meaning one who listens. We are all listeners, hearing, each in our own way, the teachings that the Buddha gives us. This Sangha of disciples is also called the Fourfold Sangha: monks, bhikkhus, nuns, bhikkhunis, laymen, upasaka, and laywomen, upasika. The going forth ritual we are about to conduct demonstrates the relationship between the renunciant Sangha of monks and nuns, also called Samana Sangha, and the Upasaka Sangha of lay people. This formal ceremony, which is called the going forth Pabbaja, appears for some to create a separation between us. People occasionally comment on how they feel sad at the loss of a wonderful friendship, that the closeness of a relationship they had before has been taken away by putting on the robes. Some sadness is understandable because something valued has been lost. But isn't there also something gained? Remember, wisdom sees both sides, whilst attachment to our preferences causes the distortion of seeing only one side. The space that appears in our relationship is also an opportunity for something new to develop between us. Familiarity is not the only context for insight, and maybe not even the best. Sometimes we assume a familiarity with each other so as to avoid the pain of the loneliness that we feel. Maybe by emphasizing difference, we can arrive at a greater sense of mutual benefit. This comes out of a new quality of relatedness that has a beauty of its own. The Buddha required that his monks and nuns have an appearance distinct from householders. For instance, he established a training rule that we are not allowed to put our robes aside and wear lay clothes. He wanted renunciants to be noticed. I'm sure he didn't expect that everybody would want to join the renunciate Sangha, as some people suggest might happen. We are different beings with different perspectives. It seems to me that the Buddha saw the celibate renunciant community as having a particular contribution to make, both to the individuals who live the life and to those who support and witness it. To use an old-fashioned expression, this life is a calling. In the same way, some might feel called to become a nurse. Have you ever met a real nurse? If you have been ill and have had the good fortune to be cared for someone who is a nurse without a sense of calling, you will know what I mean. There's a natural healing that comes with their attention. It is in their nature to nurse the sick. Not everyone should or could become a nurse, and not everyone should become a monk or nun. If it is not in one's nature to live the renunciant life, then it won't work. But I would say that for those by whom such a calling is heard, follow it. I truly delight in witnessing occasions such as this when someone goes forth. When any of us finds our true way in life, it is a benefit for all beings, and that is indeed a cause for celebration. Giving up self-seeking. In the individual making the gesture of joining a community of celibate renunciants, There must be a conscious interest in going beyond self-seeking impulses. Without this kind of desire for transforming selfishness, there is a real risk that the entire effort will turn against us. Instead of our wild animal passions being transformed into that which is truly human, our ego nature is empowered, and we turn into monsters. This does happen. So in the training, there is this lifestyle. We recognize the compulsive tendencies of our ego to seek happiness through the mere gratification of desire, and we become interested in realizing the true nature of desire itself. We want to experience wanting with an awareness without being caught by it. We want to train to go beyond the attachment to wanting. This is skillful wanting or right practice. This is the point. On the conventional level, we are asked to give up certain physical activities, but the aim is an inner awakening, a renunciation of our commitment to ego conditioning. The form itself is not it. In terms of specific training guidelines, the Code of Discipline, Patimokkha, requires that we renounce all personal involvement with money. No bank accounts, not even handling money. It also takes away the security of having control over how and when we eat. We can't store food, grow food, or cook food. The other primary area of behavior regulated by the training is sexuality. A total giving up of all intentional erotic activity is expected. This is extremely difficult for everybody. But these requirements of physical restraint in the areas of money, food, and sex are not to be seen as an end in themselves. And we all need reminding of this, since the struggle that arises from a sincere attempt to keep to these guidelines generates such an intensity that we can lose perspective. We forget the real point, and we focus too tightly on the rules. This is one reason why, particularly in the early years, it is so helpful to live in community. For the first 5 years, it is required. We often need each other to help us remember not to get overly rigid about it all. As committed materialists, we readily mistake the form to be something more than it is. The form is there to serve the spirit. The cat was put out so the puja could go uninterrupted. When the cat died, they should have forgotten about it. The puja was the point. In our case, the heart's surrender to the way beyond conditioned self-seeking preferences is the point. All the conventions we follow are to support that. So now I will continue with an excerpt from the Four Noble Truths by Ajahn Sumedho. I'll be reading from the Fourth Noble Truth. The Fourth Noble Truth, like the first three, has three aspects. The first aspect is there is the Eightfold Path, the Anagarika Kiran, the way out of suffering. It is also called the Arya Magga, the Aryan or Noble Eightfold Path. The second aspect is this path should be developed. The final insight into arahantship is this path has been fully developed. The Eightfold Path is presented in a sequence, beginning with a right or perfect understanding, samma ditthi. It goes to right or perfect intention or aspiration, samma sankappa. These first two elements of the path are grouped together as wisdom, panya. Moral commitment, sila, flows from panya. This covers right speech, right action, and right livelihood, also referred to as perfect speech, perfect action, and perfect livelihood, samma vaca, samma kammanta, and samma ajiva. Then we have right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, samma vayama, samma sati, and samma samadhi, which flow naturally from sila. The last three provide emotional balance. They are about the heart that is liberated from self-view and from selfishness. With right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, the heart is pure, free from taints and defilements. When the heart is pure, the mind is peaceful. Wisdom, panya, or right understanding and right aspiration, comes from a pure heart. This takes us back to where we started. These, then, are the elements of the Eightfold Path, grouped in 3 sections: wisdom, panya, right understanding, samma ditthi; right aspiration, samma sankappa; morality, sila; right speech, samma vacha; right action, samma kammanta; right livelihood, samma ajiva; concentration, samadhi; right effort, samma vayama; right mindfulness, samma sati; right concentration, samma samadhi. The fact that we list them in order does not mean that they happen in a linear way, in sequence. They arise together. We may talk about the Eightfold Path and say, first you have right understanding, then you have right aspiration, but actually, presented in this way, it simply teaches us to reflect on the importance of taking responsibility for what we say and do in our lives. The first element of the Eightfold Path is right understanding, which arises through insights into the first 3 noble truths. If you have these insights, then there is perfect understanding of Dhamma, the understanding that all that is subject to arising is subject to ceasing. It is as simple as that. You do not have to spend much time reading all that is subject to arising is subject to ceasing to understand the words, but it takes quite a while for most of us to really know what the words mean in a profound way, rather than just through cerebral understanding. To use modern colloquial English, insight is really gut knowledge. It's not just from ideas. It's no longer, I think I know, or yes, that seems like a reasonable, sensible thing, I agree with that, I like that thought. That kind of understanding is still from the brain, whereas insight knowledge is profound. It is really known, and doubt is no longer a problem. This deep understanding comes from the previous 9 insights, so there is a sequence leading to right understanding of things as they are, namely that all that is subject to arising is subject to ceasing, and is not self. With right understanding, you have given up the illusion of a self that is connected to mortal conditions. There is still the body, there are still feelings and thoughts, but they are simply what they are. There is no longer the belief that you are your body, or your feelings, or your thoughts. The emphasis is on things are what they are. We are not trying to say that things are not anything at all, or that they are not what they are. They are exactly what they are, and nothing more. But when we are ignorant, we think we have not understood these. When we have not understood these truths, we tend to think things are more than what they are. We tend to believe all kinds of things, and we create all kinds of problems around the conditions that we experience. So much of human anguish and despair comes from the added extra that is born of ignorance in the moment. It is sad to realize how the misery and anguish and despair of humanity is based on delusion. The despair is empty and meaningless. When you see this, you begin to feel infinite compassion for all beings. How can you hate anyone or bear grudges or condemn anyone who is caught in the bond of this ignorance? Everyone is influenced to do the things they do by their wrong views of things. As we meditate, we experience some tranquility, a measure of calm in which the mind has slowed down. When we look at something like a flower with a calm mind, we are looking at it as it is, when there is no grasping, nothing to gain, nothing to get rid of. Then, if what we see, hear, or experience through the senses is beautiful, it is truly beautiful. We are not criticizing it, comparing it, trying to possess it or own it. We find delight and joy in the beauty around us because there is no need to make anything out of it. It is exactly what it is. Beauty reminds us of purity, truth, and ultimate beauty. We should not see it as a lure to delude us. These flowers are here to attract me, so I'll get deluded by them. That's the attitude of the old meditating grump. When we look at a member of the opposite sex with a pure heart, we appreciate the beauty without the desire for some kind of contact or possession. We can delight in the beauty of other people. both men and women, when there is no selfish interest or desire. There is honesty, things as they are. This is what we mean by liberation, or vimukti in Pali. We are liberated by those bonds that distort and corrupt the beauty around us, such as the bodies we have. However, our minds can get so corrupt and negative and depressed and obsessed with things that we no longer see them as they are. If we don't have right understanding, we see everything through increasingly thick filters and veils. Right understanding is to be developed through reflection, using the Buddha's teaching. The Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta is a very interesting teaching to contemplate and use as a reference for reflection. We can also use other suttas from the Tipitaka, such as those dealing with paticca samuppada, dependent origination. This is a fascinating teaching to reflect upon. If you can contemplate such teachings, you can see very clearly the difference between the way things are as a Dhamma and the point where we tend to create delusion out of the way things are. That is why we need to establish full conscious awareness of things as they are. If there is knowledge of the Four Noble Truths, then there is Dhamma. With right understanding, everything is seen as Dhamma. For example, we are sitting here. This is Dhamma. We don't think of this body and mind as a personality, with all its views and opinions and all the conditioned thoughts and reactions that we have acquired through ignorance. We reflect upon this moment now as, this is the way it is. This is Dhamma. We bring into the mind the understanding that this physical formation is simply Dhamma. It is not self. It is not personal. Also, we see the sensitivity of this physical formation as Dhamma rather than taking it personally. I'm sensitive or I'm not sensitive. You're not sensitive to me. Who's the most sensitive? Why do we feel pain? Why did God create pain? Why didn't he just create pleasure? Why is there so much misery and suffering in the world? It's unfair. People die and we have to separate from the people we love. The anguish is terrible. There's no Dhamma in that, is there? It's all self-view. Poor me, I don't like this. I don't want it to be this way. I want security, happiness, pleasure, and all the best of everything. It's not fair that my parents were not arahants when I came into this world. It's not fair that they never elect arahants to be Prime Minister of Britain. If everything were fair, they would elect arahants to be Prime Minister. I'm trying to take this sense of it's not right, it's not fair to create an absurdity in order to point out how we expect God to create everything for us and to make us happy and secure. This is often what people think, even if they don't say so. But when we reflect, we see this is the way it is. Pain is like this, and this is what pleasure is like. Consciousness is this way. We feel, we breathe, we can aspire. When we reflect, we contemplate our own humanity as it is. We don't take it on a personal level anymore or blame anyone, because things are not exactly as we like or want. It is the way it is, and we are the way we are. You might ask why we can't all be exactly the same, with the same anger, the same greed, and the same ignorance, without all the variations and permutations. However, even though you can trace human experience to basic things, each one of us has our own karma to deal with, our own obsessions and tendencies, which are always different in quality and quantity to those of someone else. Why can't we all be exactly equal, have exactly the same of everything and all look alike, one androgynous being? In a world like that, nothing would be unfair. No differences would be allowed, everything would be absolutely perfect, and there would be no possibility of inequality. But as we recognize Dhamma, we see that within the realm of conditions. No two things are identical. They're all quite different, infinitely variable and changing. And the more we try to make conditions conform to our ideas, the more frustrated we get. We try to create each other and a society to fit the ideas we have of how things should be, but we always end up feeling frustrated. With reflection, we realize this is the way it is. This is the way things have to be. They can only be this way. Now, that is not a fatalistic or negative reflection. It is not an attitude of that's the way it is and there's nothing you can do about it. It's a very positive response of accepting the flow of life for what it is. Even if it is not what we want, we can accept it and learn from it. We are conscious, intelligent beings with retentive memory. We have language. Over the past several thousand years, we have developed reason, logic, and discriminative intelligence. What we must do is figure out how to use these capacities as tools for realization of Dhamma, rather than as personal acquisitions or personal problems. People who develop their discriminative intelligence and often end up turning it upon themselves. They will become very self-critical and even begin to hate themselves. This is because our discriminative faculties tend to focus upon what is wrong with everything. This is what discrimination is about, seeing how this is different from that. When you do that to yourself, what do you end up with? Just a whole list of flaws and faults that make you sound absolutely hopeless. When we are developing right understanding, we can use our intelligence for reflection and contemplation of things. We also use our mindfulness and wisdom together. So now we are using our ability to discriminate with wisdom rather than with ignorance. This teaching of the Four Noble Truths is to help you use your intelligence, your ability to contemplate, reflect, and think in a wise way rather than a self-destructive, greedy, or hateful way. Right aspiration. The second element of the Eightfold Path is Samma Sankappa. Sometimes this is translated as right thought, thinking in the right way. However, it actually has more of a dynamic quality, like intention, attitude, or aspiration. I like to use aspiration, which is somehow very meaningful in the Eightfold Path, because we do aspire. It's important to see that aspiration is not desire. The Pali word tanha means desire that comes out of ignorance, whereas sankappa means aspiration not coming from ignorance. Aspiration might seem like a kind of desire to us because in English we use the word desire for everything of that nature, either aspiring or wanting. You might think that aspiration is a kind of tanha, wanting to become enlightened, bhava tanha, but samma sankappa comes from right understanding, seeing clearly. It is not wanting to become anything. It is not the desire to become an enlightened person. With right understanding, that whole illusion and the way of thinking no longer makes sense. Aspiration is a feeling, an intention, attitude, or movement within us. Our spirit rises. It does not sink downwards. It is not desperation. When there is right understanding, we aspire to truth, beauty, and goodness. Samma Ditti and Samma Sankappa. Right understanding and right aspiration are called panya, or wisdom, and they make up the first of the three sections in the Eightfold Path. We can contemplate, why is it that we still feel discontented, even when we have the best of everything? We're not completely happy, even if we have a beautiful house, a car, the perfect marriage, lovely bright children, and all the rest of it. And we're certainly not contented when we do not have all those things. If we don't have them, we can think, well, if I had the best, then I'd be content. But we wouldn't be. The earth is not the place for our contentment. It's not supposed to be. When we realize that, we no longer expect contentment from planet Earth. We do not make that demand. Until we realize that this planet cannot satisfy all our wants, we keep asking, why can't you make me content, Mother Earth? We're like little children who suckle their mother, constantly trying to get the most out of her and wanting her to always nurture and feed them and make them feel content. If we were content, then we would not wonder about things. Yet we do recognize that there is something more than just the ground under our feet. There is something above us that we can't quite understand. We have the ability to wonder and ponder about life, to contemplate its meaning. If you want to know the meaning of your life, you cannot be content with material wealth, comfort, and security alone. So we aspire to know the truth. You might think that that is a kind of presumptuous desire or aspiration. Who do I think I am? Little old me trying to know the truth about everything. But there is that aspiration. Why do we have it if it is not possible? Consider the concept of ultimate reality. An absolute or ultimate truth is a very refined concept. The idea of God, the deathless or the immortal, is actually a very refined thought. We aspire to know that ultimate reality. The animal side of us does not aspire. It does not know anything about such aspirations. But there is in each of us an intuitive intelligence that wants to know. It is always with us, but we tend to not notice it. We do not understand it. We tend to discard or mistrust it, especially modern materialists. They just think it is fantasy and not real. As for myself, I was really happy when I realized that the planet is not my real home. I had always suspected it. I can remember being, even as a small child, thinking, I don't really belong here. I've never particularly felt that planet Earth is where I really belong. Even before I was a monk, I never felt that I fitted into the society. For some people, that could be kind of a neurotic problem, but perhaps it could also be kind of an intuition children often have. When you're innocent, your mind is very intuitive. The mind of a child is more intuitively in touch with the mysterious forces than most adult minds are. As we grow up, we have become conditioned to think in very set ways and have fixed ideas about what is real and what is not. As we develop our egos, society dictates what is real and what is not, what is right and what is wrong, and we begin to interpret the world through these fixed perceptions. One thing we find charming in children is that they don't do that yet. They still see the world with the intuitive mind that is not yet conditioned. Meditation is a way of deconditioning the mind, which helps us let go of all the hardline views and fixed ideas we have. Ordinarily, what is real is dismissed, while what is not real is given all our attention. This is what ignorance, avidya, is. The contemplation of our human aspiration connects us to something higher than just the animal kingdom or the planet Earth. To me, that connection seems more true than the idea that this is all there is, that once we die, our bodies rot, and that there is nothing more than that. When we ponder and wonder about this universe we're living in, we see that it is very vast, mysterious, and incomprehensible to us. However, when we trust more in our intuitive mind, we can be receptive to things that we may have forgotten or have never been open to before. We open when we let go of fixed, conditioned reactions. We can have the fixed idea of being a personality, of being a man or woman, being an English person or an American. These things can be very real to us, and we can get very upset and angry about them. We are even willing to kill each other over these conditioned views that we hold and believe in and never question. Without right aspiration and right understanding, without panya, we can never see the true nature of these views.